Hi, I'm Jason Freeman. Welcome to episode 57 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. Oh, this is one of my favorite times of the week because I always interview amazing people, and this week's no exception. Oh, I'm so excited to bring on my guests for this week. But let me tell you just a little about myself. I'm a professional speaker with a speech impediment. I mean, that's making a speech impediment sign, not a smile sign, but in this case, anyway, I specialize in speaking to junior high and high school students on coping, acceptance, resilience, and possibility. A unique surprise we have for this week is there's no intro because my business partner said he worked for hours last night on getting the intro to work, and surprise, it wouldn't work, but he's figuring it out. So for next week or the week after, we'll get into it. They'll be back. They'll be back. Don't worry. So let me get right into introducing my guest. My guest has a name that's challenging coming out of my mouth, but he's agreed to let me call him Joerg Steegmueller. Joerg Steegmueller is not easily categorized. He grew up in Germany and, check this out, ended up in Dublin, Ireland, where he has been for the last 20 plus years. From when he was 16, he knew he wanted to study computer science, and he got a master's in computer science and computer engineering in Germany, and was a bit of a nerd. But when he widened his horizon about 15 years ago, he realized that there's lots more to life than bits and bytes. He still has one leg in the technology world, but also teaches young adults and adults about leadership, confidence, mindset, persuasion skills, and public speaking. He is an NLP trainer, a personal development coach, and business coach and consultant. He has I mean he kind of does a lot. For instance, he has 3 companies, and when the first 24 hours are up, then the rest of the day is dedicated to hobbies. And these hobbies are compiling a weekly event publication for cultural events in Dublin with tens of thousands of followers playing Padel Tennis as often as possible and organizing Padel Tennis events, and finally looking after all the sound and technical things for a gospel choir in Dublin. So without further ado, let's welcome Joerg. Well, welcome, Joerg.
Jason, hi. Great to see you. Great that you have me. Thanks very much.
I mean, you're welcome. Thanks for being on the show. I'm so excited. You're my first guest from across the Atlantic.
Very good. I'm glad to be that.
So so from your bio, it sounds like you live kind of a boring life, and that you're often bored with, with
I
nothing
have
to do.
nothing to do. Life is terrible, isn't it?
It's
But
so
like yourself.
tedious.
like yourself, I like to keep myself busy and have the opportunity, the possibility to do that. And well, life is there to be lived in, right? So that's what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying it.
Beautiful, beautiful. So can we go back in time a little bit?
Sure, yeah, go ahead,
I
bring me back.
mean, you're already going back in time because it's like a lot of hours ahead in Ireland, so you're going back in time even talking to me. But I mean farther back in time. So
Yeah.
so how did you know at an early age that you wanted to study computer science?
That's an interesting story. I had a great, very, very close friend. He was a good few years older, but we spent a lot of time with each other. And he got a. Some people might remember who are listening to this. It was a Sinclair Spectrum computer. He got that brand new, and then he taught me how to write a 4-line program. And it was print hello on the screen. That was all. It was a basic program, and I did that myself with his instructions. And as soon as I had written these 4 or 5 lines of code, I knew I wanted to learn that. I want to study that. So that's how it all began. And then I think I was 15 or 16 at that time. So it was still a few years before I went to university. But I did then computer science in school, and that was early days. It was an Apple IIe was our computer, and we had 2 computers for the whole school.
Had
So
two
2
computers for the
computers,
and
yeah.
you were studying computer science?
No. That was in the secondary school.
Oh,
So
okay.
then I studied then in university where there were a few more computers, but it was still more mainframe territory, not home computer or laptop or so at that time. But it was good. Early days.
What did you enjoy about this course of study and all the way through getting your master's?
You know, I was determined, and it wasn't easy because maths wasn't my strong point, and I nearly tripped over some maths exams, calculus I think it was that I had to do a few times,
Oh,
but
calculus is so challenging.
oh yeah, it was, but I did get through it then, and I still sometimes, even now, I still occasionally have dreams where I think that I still have to do one more exam. There's one more exam that will get me
Oh,
there.
oh. What do you think led to your confidence that you could persist and and get through this course of study even though it was so challenging?
I don't know, but I really want to do that and complete that. And I guess confidence and going after the things that you want to go after starts very early in your life, you know. And my parents were definitely a big influence on that. My they started with in very difficult circumstances in their life, financially and otherwise, but they fought super hard and built their enterprise. It's a small enterprise, but they built their business. It was agriculture at the time, and that came from nothing. And so they knew what hard work was. I was lucky. I didn't know what hard work was when I went to university. I didn't have to because they were so great with us and for us. But I just wanted to finish that studies. You know, I definitely knew that's what I want to be. That's where I want to get to, and so I did whatever had to be done.
So your parents were able to, in their own lives, find the confidence and the perseverance to go from very humble beginnings to where to to having their own enterprise and it sounds like a lot of that work ethic and that just that ability to believe in something bigger than present circumstances sounds
Yeah.
like they gave a lot of that to you.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm hugely grateful. I cannot complain at all about my upbringing and about the opportunities that I had, and all these things were passed on to myself and my brother. And
Mm.
so my parents are still alive. They are 80. My dad was 80, 84 last weekend, and my mom is 83, and they're still quite fit. And my dad is
That's
still working every single day, so it is great. I haven't
and
seen them for 2 years.
you said working every single day. What?
Yeah, yeah. He's helping. My brother also has a farm, and it's a strawberry farm, strawberries for self picking and a few other things. But so my dad still helps with it, and then does the garden and on all these things. So he still works on a daily basis. Gets up at 7 o'clock and works till late. And so it's great, and it's great to see that they are still able to live their life. You know.
I'm so inspired by a story like that because I want to be vibrant in my 80s too.
Absolutely. But
Such a good,
your parents are also still in good form, aren't they?
yeah.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, luckily. Fortunately.
Yes.
So about you said in your bio that about 15 years ago you learned that there's more to life than bits and bytes. How did was that like an epiphany? How did that happen?
I because I studied computer science and computer engineering, and I was then a consultant and worked in that area for many years, and I loved it. There's nothing wrong about it. But bits and bytes was my life, and computers was the things that I liked doing, and technology and things like that. But then, and that was a more or less a coincidence. But then some people say there are no coincidences. I went to an event, and it was an NLP training event that guy from your neck of the woods, from Los Angeles from the Los Angeles area, Chris Howard did, and I was fascinated.
So back up. Why would you go to an event that was completely out of your realm of what you
That
did?
that's a very good question. I like challenging myself. I like learning new things. I like doing things that are not the things that I did before. Because
Mm.
when you learn new things, then you discover new things about yourself and about the world. And so I like that. The event was something that I discovered, and I had started already the Dublin Event Guide at that time, which is that event publication that I'm still doing. And I wrote about it because it was happening in Dublin. And so I went to it to try it out myself. And I have to admit that the first half a day, three-quarters of a day, I sat there with my arms crossed. Convince me, I don't believe that stuff. And so I wasn't really fully into it. But I discovered that there's a lot more to it and a lot more to learn. And that started my path on personal development and on that side. I think you're frozen at the moment. So let's see if it comes back. Jason. No, Jason seems to be gone, so I am on my own, but I don't know if StreamYard is still streaming. So maybe I'll just keep talking and see if Jason will join me again soon. I'll tell you a little bit about Jason and how we met. We met in San Diego about 4 years ago, and he inspired me right from the beginning. He's a great guy, and we were at the extreme leadership training that Steve Faber does in San Diego, and so that's where we met, and we worked together on that training day. And since then, we stayed in contact. And Jason moved from San Diego to South Dakota, where he is from, and is living there now and does great walks. But his amazingness is expressed in the talks that he does. And as he introduced himself as a professional speaker, and he does a lot of work with children in schools, with students in colleges, but also with Chamber of Commerce and lots of other organizations. So he's really a great guy. And now I'm here a while on my own. As I said, I don't know if it is still streaming. And he hasn't come back yet. So what will I do next? Because running the show was not the plan for me. Still seems to be live. Let's see. Yeah. I guess I have to somehow find a way of terminating. That session, and maybe we'll start a new one. But I'm not too sure. The platform that we're using I haven't used before, and I think Jason is the only person who can control it. The only thing that I could do is leave the studio, which is kind of running away.
Okay, I'm back.
He's back! Hooray! I thought, what? That wasn't the plan. You're leaving me alone.
Yeah, so it's just a 15-minute podcast, and instead of saying bye, I just shut everything down. I think it's like a shock effect.
Very good, very good. Now, what's the title of your book again? Awkwardly Awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and this definitely was forgetting to.
It was a little.
Plug my computer in. So did you continue with your NLP story, or what did you do?
I said a little. I was telling a little bit of story about how we met at Steve Farber's Extreme Leadership Training in San Diego, and that you do great work speaking to schools and colleges and chambers of commerce and Rotary clubs and other people, and you do a great job. And so that's what I was trying to fill the gap a little bit with the story.
Sweet, thanks so much. You did great. So anyway, I'm all plugged in now, so it's all good. So anyway, you started this publication in your spare time in Ireland, and giving this service to people led you to this NLP event, and what was that? What was it like on your first day being at the event?
I was not really into it, or I wasn't too sure, because it was something completely new. Now, for the people that don't know, NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it is really how we talk to ourselves and how we influence ourselves, and how this talking to ourselves influences our behavior and our feeling about ourselves and everything that we do. But it's also how we talk to other people is also influenced by language. And so language and the nervous system, they are connected directly to each other. But this was something that I didn't have much of an idea about it before. Now, I do remember my aunt many years ago gave me a present of a book, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. I think Joseph Murphy or something like that is the author. It was a really good book, and I initially, when I got it, I was very disappointed, because I probably was 12 years of age or so, and this was not the present that I loved. I would have preferred a toy or something like that.
You wanted a computer.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, no, and actually not yet at that time. A few years later only. But yeah, anything that is cooler than a book about the power of your subconscious mind. But it still was something that fascinated me. But I didn't really do much about it, and I didn't really know where to go to do something about it. So only when I went to that training, then I discovered that new approach and that new learning, and that was about 15 years ago, and I haven't stopped since. I did lots of training in the years in between, and now I do my own training. And I'm doing, for example, and that's we talked about my parents and their influence. I'm doing training about your inner critic, tame your inner critic, is one of the things that I do, and it all plays kind of together. And when you look at it, you see, yeah, I know now where it's coming from, but it took a few detours, or I took a few detours to get there.
Many of us, maybe all of us, struggle with an inner critic.
Yeah.
What would you tell us about t- taming such a?
Yeah, taming the inner critic, and I call it taming the inner critic because the inner critic, this little voice in our head, is there all the time and will never go away. But what we do with it, that's the question, and that we have influence over. And there's a number of different strategies that we can use. Some of them are tricks, some of them are strategies. One of the simplest one is, for example, to personalize that voice, to understand where it's coming from, where it was created. Very often it is parents, but I did a training there recently where the people mentioned parents, teachers, and they are obvious, but also partners, wife or husband or so, and priests. Because
Great.
the authority figures, the people that have influence over us, who told us when we were younger that we can do something or cannot do something, and they are still in our head, in our ears, in ourselves, and that's where that neurolinguistic programming comes in again. Because what we do say to ourselves, and in this case, we kind of say to ourselves, because the voice that we hear, we create that, obviously. It is not coming out of thin air, but we have adopted these ideas that other people have about us. And these things, they influence us on a daily basis. And you tell a brilliant story about, was it your first grade, when you looked around in school, and what was that? You looked around in class and you realized that something is different, right?
Yeah. I was like sailing through grade school, but I changed schools in fourth grade, and suddenly somehow that change caused me to look around and go, oh, something's different, and it's me, and the critic told me right then that it wasn't right to have a different sounding voice.
Yeah, exactly. And these are things where, yeah, sure, it was there all the time, but you kind of you internalized it more at some
Yeah.
point, and then you had to overcome it again, and then you had to realize that, hey, this voice is perfect. This is my voice. This voice is perfect. Let's use it. And that's what I suggest people to do, to use that inner critic, and to use it for their advantage, and to turn it around, to tame it, and to work with it.
This is a tie-in that I hadn't thought of before, but so talk a little about how you've learned to love sports, as love playing sports as an adult versus when you were younger. You had your inner critic said a lot about playing sports, right?
That's right, yeah. And again, there was a voice there that told me that I'm not good at sports. That voice came from my mother. But my mother didn't mean that in a bad way. Instead, my grandmother, she was about 33 when her husband got killed in the war, and so she had three little children, and so money was extremely short.
Wow.
So sport was not really something that you could do. First of all, you didn't have the time because you had to work. The second thing is you didn't have the money. So this this collective, we are not good at sports, was something that came from my grandmother. My mother adopted it. She said it to myself and my brother, and so we kind of adopted it as well. And then at a later stage, then I realized that this is just a story. It is just something that is not necessarily factual, but this is something that was kind of programmed into us, and not with a bad intent at all. But it came from a good reason, because my grandmother didn't want to disappoint her children, obviously. So by saying that, she took that disappointment of I can't afford or can't let you do any sport. She took that out and changed it around. And I was teaching then Krav Maga, which is a self-defense system, for about 10 years. And then about 3 years ago, I discovered, through a friend of mine, I discovered Padel Tennis, and I'm absolutely addicted. Like most people that discover Padel Tennis, I'm absolutely addicted.
Wow. If I have plenty of questions, but if anyone else has comments, please, or questions, please, I would love to get them up too.
Yeah.
So, our belief systems can be so all-encompassing. Like at one point, you believed your reality was I Joerg am not. First of all, my name's not pronounced Joerg, but that's it.
It is actually. You're right. You're perfect. Joerg is absolutely right.
But at one point, your whole reality was I'm just not good at sports.
Yeah.
Like, how do you? I mean, I heard you just say it, but like, when someone has like a paradigm like that, how do you go from? How do you sort of see the dimensions of that paradigm and go beyond that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The first thing is to realize that this is not based on facts, but this is based on a story that maybe you created for yourself or that other people created for you. And when you realize that this is a story, then you don't stop there, but you question it and you say, where is it coming from? Why is it there? And is it something that is if I was a very small person and I want to become a basketball superstar, then there are difficulties. This is not necessarily easily possible or possible at all. But if there is no logical reason why I hold myself back based on certain stories, then try it out. Try it with small steps. So you take a small step towards that direction. You do something. I did cycling, for example, at some point. So I realized, well, if I can do cycling, that's also a sport. Maybe I can do also some other things. And then I did a course when I was a few years in Ireland. I did a course in Krav Maga and realized that I really liked it. And at that time, I didn't consider to be teaching it. But there were some. I put myself in a position so that at some point I was naturally picked to take over a class or to teach a class, and that was really just small steps where you constantly deal with your thought processes and your inner critic or whatever you want to call it. Not everything should be or has to be labeled inner critic, but a lot of it is. And you put yourself in the way, you analyze it, you say what is happening, why is it happening, and then you can achieve different things. And most of us could achieve a lot more in life than we do achieve. And that is because we hold ourselves back, we sabotage ourselves, and we limit ourselves with limiting beliefs, limiting values, and things like that.
And how do limiting beliefs relate to the actions we take in life?
The limiting beliefs stop us. They're sabotaging us. Sometimes it is really sabotage where you do something and you yourself sabotage it. You want to achieve something, but you do whatever you can do to stop yourself from doing it. And that is an odd human psychology trick that we do to ourselves. But in other times we just don't put ourselves in the position to have the opportunity to achieve more, because we hold ourselves back. For example, public speaking is a brilliant example, where people, yourself, if you stand on a stage, yes, it's frightening. At least in the beginning, it's frightening, right?
Yeah.
You expect that people laugh at you, or that you screw up, and that everything goes wrong. But when you try it, then you realize actually it's not that bad, right? And then the first time it's still, whoa, flutters in your stomach and butterflies and all that stuff. But then you realize, well, I'm not that bad. I don't really suck at it. I don't really know. You probably remember the brother Korn. They're a duo, two brothers from the San Diego area, and they have a workshop that they do, Dare to Suck. And this is something that we have to be prepared to do. Just dare to suck, prepare to fail. If you want to pursue something, pursue it anyway, even if there might be some hurdles on the way.
Well, for example, when the first time you played Padel Tennis, were you brilliant?
Oh, I was amazingly bad. Yeah, I mentioned that story there recently to a friend. When somebody, it's a tennis ball that Padel Tennis is played with, and Padel Tennis is it's not tennis, it's not squash. It is like tennis that is played in doubles with a net in between, but in a glass court. So and there are some similarities with tennis, but there's also a lot of differences. Now, when you imagine a tennis ball, just a normal yellow tennis ball, you throw it at somebody, and some people can easily catch that. Not a problem. I couldn't. I was not able to.
Some people go like this.
Exactly, yeah. I put my hand out and I missed it nearly every time. And so, because our eye-hand coordination is something that we need to learn in all aspects. And so I was really bad. And it took me a while to improve on it. Now I took some lessons. That's a good trick if you want to get better. So I took some lessons, and then I improved bit by bit. I was playing yesterday, and the ball came at me in nearly not full speed, but quite fast. And I just easily could catch it out of the air. Nothing significant has changed in my behavior, but my brain has tuned in to the ability to do something different. And also, I wasn't afraid of catching it. So before that, you might think, oh my God, I can't do that. I can't achieve that. I will be bad. But if you're passionate about something, go for it. Absolutely go for it.
So again, with paddleball, it was like your computer science degrees, like you came up against challenges, but you're like, I'm passionate about it, so I'm going to learn this.
Yeah. In that area, or in the learning area, the biggest challenge that I ever had was learning to ride a electric unicycle. The electric
unicycle?
Electric unicycle, yes, yeah.
That's only one wheel, Joerg.
It is, yeah. It's one, yeah.
Not two, not three, not four. One.
One single wheel, and 2 footrests on the side of that one wheel. And you stand on it, and by leaning forward, you go faster, and by leaning back, you brake. And I looked at that, and I thought, well, I can cycle, and it has a gyroscope in it that keeps it kind of upright, so it should be relatively easy. But then I realized this is a complete different way of moving and thinking. And I also realized that when we cycle, and I saw that later on in a description how robots can cycle, because there's little robots that can cycle, but they use the steering wheel. Little robots. Robots, yeah. And you think, how can robots keep the balance? Because on a bicycle you need to keep the balance. And these robots, they use the steering wheel constantly to counteract the falling. So if they fall on one side, then they steer against it.
Wow.
But this is something that, as human beings, our brain has to do that, right? And it took me months to be able, and I had help, and it still didn't work, to be able to use that electric unicycle. It was the most, I don't know, challenging learning that I ever did, because the falling was the next step. I guess you could compare it with when we started to walk, because we
Wow.
fell on our nose and
Wow.
we got up again. And this was similar to that. It's
Do
only
you have to fall a lot?
you do kind of fall a little bit, not hard, but you kind of jump off then. But it is something where, as children, it was a natural thing that we did. We didn't even think about it. But as grown-ups, we have this fear of failure, but also of falling. And falling is sometimes just a metaphor. It's not the real falling, because you can jump off without hurting yourself. But it is this fear of falling, and we want to avoid that under all circumstances. Yeah, at all circumstances is the expression. So we want to avoid that falling at all circumstances. And sometimes you have to say, okay, I'm prepared to fall because I want to achieve something new. And so learning to ride an electric unicycle was challenging.
I'm prepared to fall because I want to achieve something new.
Yeah, absolutely right.
So what would you tell a 14 or 15-year-old kid who wants to do all these things in life, but gets frustrated when the things get hard?
The first thing I would say, get up, dust yourself off, and try it again. That's the first thing. Go back to your childhood, because as children, as I said, I like telling that story that I picked up from somewhere. I can't remember where, but you remember when we learned walking, and we fell on our nose, and we didn't say, "Well, I think that's not for me. I'll stay on the ground," But we just tried it again. Interesting thing though is our parents and our family also didn't say, "Hey, Jason fell on his nose 3 times. I think he's not a walker."
Oh, that's a good point. We had support from around us to learn to walk.
They were cheering us on. They were celebrating. They were clapping and shouting when you made your first steps. Everybody was happy about it. And then later in life, you try to do something new. You try to start a business. You try to start a new career path or some new direction, and people say, "Ooh, I don't think that's for you." Where's the cheering? Where's the support that we need at that point? And we don't have it anymore, and we don't give ourselves that support either. Instead, we just accept, okay, it's not for me. I better go back to my 9-to-5 job and do what I have done for the last 20 years instead of trying it. At least trying it to a degree. You don't have to abandon all your previous life and start something completely new out of the blue. But if you want to try something new, then do it in your spare time initially, and then maybe embark on it in a bigger way.
That's a good point. When you started learning the electric unicycle, it's not like you did that 12 hours a day every day.
No, I didn't. And I had so many bruises that I had to stop sometimes.
Wow.
It was worth it, though. It was worth it.
Speaking of businesses, do you ever think of opening your own business?
Sometimes, yeah. I started about 20 years ago. I started with a business partner, and we started a telecoms business. It's still running, but there's challenges, big challenges. But about 3-4 years ago, I couldn't hold back, and I started the Inspiring Leadership Academy, and that is a new business, and it is something that I love doing: teaching, educating, helping people, helping young people, but also people of any age, to find their direction, their opportunity, because most of us are meant for something bigger, and we don't achieve it. And I would nearly say all of us are meant for something bigger, but I don't want to step on anybody's toes, because some people are okay where they are, and there's nothing wrong with it, absolutely nothing wrong with it. But the people that are meant, that know that they're meant for something bigger, no matter what age they are, they should go for it.
So you're not a person who says you must achieve new things. You must immigrate to another country. You must.
No, you don't must. You don't must. You don't must. Nothing is you don't have to. But if you
It's a
feel it,
choice.
yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
choice.
choice. Yeah. And if you feel it, then instead of waiting till you're on your deathbed, and then regret what you didn't do, well, try it at least. If you try it and it doesn't work, if you try it seriously and it doesn't work, it's okay to say, that wasn't for me. There's nothing wrong. Failure is not a disaster. Failure is just learning, a new learning, feedback. And with that feedback mechanism, maybe this was really not the right thing, and maybe you should try something else. But possibly, and very likely, you will discover where your limitations are, and what you can do, and then push the envelope. Push the envelope out, because the real learning is happening outside of your comfort zone. Too many of us stay in the comfort zone for our whole life.
So this gets challenging. I mean, it's all challenging, but how do you determine when you've tried something enough to really say I've given it a good go and it's just not for me?
You have to trust yourself there. Nobody can tell you when is the right time and when is the wrong time, because you know if you have tried everything. And there is some people say that the biggest risk or the biggest failure that human beings do is to give up too early, because we don't push ourselves. Once the pain starts, then people say, well, I don't think it's for me. So you have to push yourself a little bit, because nothing is super easy in life. If it's super easy, anybody could do it, and it wouldn't be that exciting. But we want to have some challenges in life, and we want to have something that keeps us motivated, keeps us inspired. And to do that, we have to break through some of the hurdles and break through some of the things that are kind of trying to derail us. And it's not external things that derail us. It's usually ourselves, our own little voice, our own environment, sometimes our own family and friends who try to derail us. And they do it also not, in most cases, not for bad reasons. They try to keep us within the realm that they know, and the realm that they are comfortable with for us to be in. And most people, if they knew that they would not fail, they would try to do something else in their life.
So a lot of moving forward and deciding when to try something else and when to keep going is about this deep self-trust.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
trusting yourself, and then just daring to suck, daring to go for it, daring to fail, and give it a go, give it a serious go. As I said, nothing is a must. Everything is a choice. And nobody will tell you, nobody will push you to do something if you don't want it. At least unless there is a financial predicament, pressures that you have to do something. But in our normal kind of surfing along life, there's nobody that challenges you to change direction. But if there is something, if there's passion in you, and if there's something that you want to do, then I'm saying go for it and give it a go. At least as on a part-time basis, at least on a hobby basis, so that you experience it, that you see, is that what I was thinking about? Is that what I was dreaming about? Because maybe it's not what you were dreaming about. A lot of people start a business, and then they realize, oh damn, I need to do my accounts, I need to find customers, I need to do all these things that I never wanted to do. I just wanted to be one aspect of it,
Mm.
and that's not what it is. So there's a lot more to it, but to discover all that, we need to risk it. We need to dare it.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, you moved from San Diego to South Dakota. I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision either.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I miss my friends in San Diego a lot, but I do love being home. But
Yeah, and
home
that's
is
that's a simple thing. That's a simple, small thing, moving from one place to another. But
mm,
you also, when you started getting on stage and talking to people, or even what we're doing now, when you started your podcast, there's a possibility that you thought, oh, I don't know enough about it. How will I do that? That will probably fail. And you still did it. And is it 57 episodes
yeah,
now, or
yeah,
57?
yeah.
Wow, that's great.
And I could have said like, oh, I'll forget to plug in the computer and it'll suddenly go out and it'll be immensely awkward and yeah, yes, and that has not only happened to you, Joerg, it's happened like 4 times. I need to make sticky notes and.
Yeah,
But I mean, when stuff happens, we can adapt to it. It's not
that's it.
like the end of the world.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. One of my mentors who I did a training with, Blair Singer, he calls it as ising. As ising is you just say, okay, hey, you know what? I forgot to put the cable in. I'll do it now. When you left me there on the screen, I thought, what will I do now? I could leave the studio and then we could start again, or I'll just keep talking and hope that you will be back. So we sometimes have to improvise and do the best that we can to find back to the groove that we wanted to be in or should be in.
As ising.
As ising is a little bit difficult to pronounce. As ising, so as is, as ising.
Nah.
I think it's a good expression to do that and to think about that, because very often we try to pretend things, but by just saying what is really happening right now,
Oh no.
people understand that. If I said, for example, if I go on stage and I said to the audience, no matter how many people there are, hey, just want to let you know that I'm really nervous at the moment. That's okay.
That's an example of as ising, because you're
That's an
not
example.
trying to fake that you're really confident.
Yeah.
You
don't try to be something completely different than you are. You just say how it is in this moment, and then you deal with it. And by recognizing it and by admitting to it, that changes something in our psychology, psychology and physiology as well, because we're not then. We don't have to react as a nervous person, but we can react as, yeah, this is what it is. This is a fact. I'll deal with the fact, and I'll work through it.
And it occurs to me that by as ising, it gives you the next logical action to take. If you realize I'm nervous on stage, but you pretend not to be, you can't take the next logical action of taking a deep breath.
Absolutely right.
Because you're pretending that the thing that you really are doesn't exist.
Yeah. It reminds me of some of the Krav Maga training that we did, where it's a self-defense training, and it's a kind of a rough self-defense training, because the origin is in Bratislava. There were Jews were attacked in the Jewish ghetto, and Emil Lichtenfeld, who developed that Krav Maga, he wanted to give them something that they could do to defend themselves. And sometimes what happens when somebody gets attacked or when something happens to our lives, then we say, oh, this can't be happening. And that gets us to freeze, because we don't know what to do next. And again, by recognizing, by accepting that what is happening, now we can react to it in a more alert way, because it's not this kind of shutting down, it can't be, but it's saying, it is, let's see what we can do.
Let's see what we can do. I'm changing subjects a little bit, a lot. I want to ask you about this. So, what did you learn about life from traveling to East Germany when you were younger?
I remember we had a chat about that at some point, because I had the opportunity when I was around 18, I think it was, to go to East Berlin. And the wall was still up at that time, and it was a very, 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 very different world. And I remember also one thing that kind of left a mark on me. We went to an ice cream parlor, and they were very different, a lot more basic. But we went to an ice cream parlor, and it was a school trip, and there were about 4 or 5 of us or so. And this is such a different world, because people were not allowed to come out of the East. We were allowed to go into East Berlin, but we had to pay some entrance fee. It's not really an entrance fee, but it was the way of the East to raise money, to raise D-Mark, the Deutsche Mark at that time. Still, that was before the euro. And so we talked about that, because we were students or pupils impressed by what we saw, and we had a chat about it. But there was a girl next to us on the table, and she was reading a newspaper, and she must have heard us talking about it and talking about how impressive it was and how different it was. And she got really, really upset. And she used the newspaper, it was Neues Deutschland was the newspaper at the time, the Eastern European newspaper, and she used the newspaper and she banged it with force on the table. There, take that, so that you have more bad things to talk about us. And the impression that it left me with was that for her, this was disparaging, this was discrediting her environment, her world. We were judging on her. We were judging what we saw, and we were actually, because there is no other way. That we all judge all the time. There's no question about it. We all judge all the time. Sometimes we don't say it, but we still judge in a way. And so for her, it was a serious kind of taking her identity away, or interfering with her identity. And for us, it was just this talking about what we saw, what we experienced. So in both worlds, they were valid, and nothing was wrong, and nothing was done with any bad intent, but it still had that impact on her. And it was quite an interesting experience that I thought about it a good few times, because we have to accept that other people see things differently, that other people understand things differently, that their world is not our world. Nobody can really put themselves in the shoes of somebody else. Really, because we can think that we can understand what somebody else thinks, but we can't.
And that's a hard recognition, because sometimes it's like we think we really think we know exactly what someone else is thinking, and you're saying we just don't. It's impossible.
No, it's impossible. It's impossible, and we can talk to people, and we can ask them, and we should sometimes talk to them more to understand what they feel. And even then, if you tell me what your life is about, then I can try to understand, but I can only do that within the limits of my thinking, of my ability to think. And if I haven't experienced that, then there's a shortfall. There's something where I can then try to intellectually understand, but that's not emotionally understanding what you feel, what you go through as another person. And that's independent from your situation in life or your conditions in life. This is just about everybody. And so but talking about it helps, because it gets us to understand a little bit more. I would have loved to talk to that girl in East Berlin and to understand more about how she saw her life. That wasn't possible, and at the time it was even it was even illegal for East Germans to talk to West Germans, and because otherwise they would be they could get into difficulties with the police and all that stuff. So she wouldn't have done that, but it would have been really, really interesting to understand that better.
That's interesting. She probably had some conception that you wouldn't like to talk to her because you felt too good to talk to her or something.
Absolutely, yeah, that's also possible. Yeah, yeah.
Whereas really you would have loved to talk to her for an hour
Yeah,
and ask
yeah.
her questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sometimes we just don't understand each other, and we don't make the effort to try to try to communicate and try to give the other person time, but we assume that we know, and that's a degree of arrogance in a way, to assume to know. We don't know.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Yeah,
So three more questions. Um, when I talk about the power of doing our imperfect best, and
yeah.
to me, it means we have a vision of what we want our lives to be the best, and we go towards that. But when imperfections come up, we use them as fuel to move forward instead of shutting down.
Mm.
What does doing your imperfect best mean to you?
Doing your imperfect best is really what I said earlier on. Give it a go, give it a try, give it the best as possible go, instead of just caving in by adopting what other people think about it or think about you, um, because everything is imperfect when it starts. Everything. I go back to the little child that learns to walk. It
Mm.
was imperfect. It was really, really bad initially. And when we speak, when we learn to do anything, I remember when I came to Ireland and I sat in the office in my first company, and I sat there looking at the phone, hoping that phone would not ring, because my English was not good enough, really. My English wasn't bad, but it wasn't good enough really to have a conversation on the phone. So I was hoping, this phone wouldn't ring, but at some point it did ring, and then I had to do my imperfect best.
Mm.
Now, everybody has different challenges. My challenges are minute in comparison to some challenges that you had, for example. And so everybody has different challenges, but everybody grows different with these challenges as well. And there's nothing right or wrong. It just is.
I love that everyone grows differently with a unique challenges.
Yeah, yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah.
And then also, I have the urge to ask you I mean, you've accomplished so much in life and tried so many new things, but what's the next frontier for York?
Oh, there's lots of things. I would love to do so many more things or improve things. The Inspiring Leadership Academy is something that I'm working on at the moment. I love educating, teaching, working with people on finding their new self, their better self, their different
Mm,
self. It's not always better. It's just different, and there's nothing
mm,
wrong or right. So I love doing that, and I will work more on that in the next few months. And so, for example, I mentioned that I do that in a critic training at the moment, and so there's a lot more things to come in that regard. I am still continuing with my event guide, and I will grow that bigger. And my paddle tennis definitely has to improve. So I'm 2.5 years into it now, but I'm still far away from the level that I would like to be. So I have
awesome.
to get better.
Awesome. It sounds so exciting versus someone who says, I've accomplished everything I want to accomplish in life, and now I'm kind
Yeah,
of bored. It sounds exciting to have so many new
yeah.
things.
every day when you learn something is a good day. So I love learning. I loved adding new things and discovering new things. I love all different sorts of experiences and museums. You know, some people, when I write about events, some people say, well, I don't like that type of music, for example. I say, go to it once, even if you don't like classical music. Listen to it once, give it a chance. Maybe hard rock is your thing and there's nothing wrong with it and you can listen to it most of the time, but give it a chance once because there is something in it for some people. Maybe you discover something that you had never expected.
Give it a chance once. Nice.
Give it a chance, yeah.
And then how do people get a hold of you if they
Easiest
want
is inspiringleadershipacademy.com would be the website, inspiringleadershipacademy.com. That would be one website to go to, and that's where they can find something about that aspect of my life. And they also can contact me there if they want to. I have lots of other websites, but it doesn't make sense to mention them all. So we'll start with that one, and then they can find me from there. I'm also on Facebook and on Instagram, not so much, but on Facebook, Joerg Steegmueller.
So
That's
is
the one,
that
Inspiring
way?
Leadership. Perfect, yeah, inspiringleadershipacademy.com. And if anybody is interested, by the way, to do that inner critic training, I'll do that for free. Just use the discount code Jason. And so actually wait another 10 minutes till after the call and use then the discount code Jason.
Jason.
And Jason just. And then they can do the inner critic training. That's next Monday. But there's also a link on the website where people can subscribe. And if they subscribe now, and it's well, no, in 10 minutes I have that discount code set up. Sorry, I should have done it before.
That's so awesome, so generous.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on here. Have so much wisdom to share. Thanks so much.
It was
And
a lot of fun.
very last thing, will you say your name? As you pronounce it?
Yeah, Joerg is the first name, right?
Joerg?
Yeah, and the last name is Steegmueller.
Steegmueller.
Steegmueller. Like Müller.
Steegmueller.
Perfect, yeah. That's very good. You got it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, my friend.
Jason, thank you so much for your time, okay? And we will see each other again hopefully soon.
Yeah. Hopefully in the States, or maybe I'll come to Ireland.
Yeah, you have to come to Ireland. You have never spoken in Ireland, so maybe we'll have to get you over.
I know the language.
Yeah, that's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you very, very much.
Well, wasn't you're great. I just so love having these discussions because I mean we each have some wisdom, some inspiration to give. We each can help each other put the puzzle pieces of our lives together just a little more. Maybe Joerg said something that just helps you put one more piece into place. Or maybe he helps you put 20 pieces into place. But either way, wow. That's a big benefit, and that helps move things forward. So thanks for tuning in. Next week, I'll have another wonderful guest. You'll have to stay tuned. Have a great week. Bye.